So if you've seen this channel before, you'll know I'm a big fan of the Sony ZVE10. I think it's a great little camera for beginners and a great place to start. And once you get a camera like this, you're quickly going to want to add a few accessories to really improve the functionality and the kind of quality that you can get out of this camera. So today I'm going to be recommending 5 of my favorite accessories for this camera. A lot of the accessories that we're talking about today are not specifically for the ZVE10 in particular, but are for cameras in general, but I think they work really, really well with this camera. Now, the first accessory that anybody should look for when buying a camera, in my opinion, especially for video, is a cage. Camera cages like this one by SmallRig really can improve what you can kind of do with your camera. So for example, the camera on its own has a small cold shoe on the top and a 1/4-20 thread on the bottom, and that's all it has. So if you want to add a lot of accessories to it, you maybe want to rig it up to be a camera like this, you're going to need to pick up a cage that'll allow you to put the camera into this sort of metal frame that adds mounting points all around the frame of the body. We've got a few here on the side, we've got some on the top, we've got more here on the side, and we've got loads on the bottom for tripod plates. This one in particular is by SmallRig. It's pretty good, and it has been my recommended one for a long time, but honestly, over a long period of time, there's been one little problem with this cage that I started to find. So whenever I built it up into a big rig like this, whenever I had a large monitor or handle on the top, this thin top piece started to be able to bend back and forth a little bit, and just anytime I was like trying to pick it up by the handle, it felt like it was bending, and this piece of metal here on the top is so thin. Now, nothing's broken, it hasn't been a problem. The only problem I had with it was whenever I tried to attach a follow focus to a top handle, and then it would sort of like, it would bend a little bit, but most people aren't going to face this problem, so it's very, very comfortable. It's pretty affordable. It comes with a great little hidden accessory to add to sort of put the screws into place, and it's really, really comfortable to hold. Now, if you are rigging up your camera to be big and bulky and have lots of weight on it, I have another recommendation, and that is this one by Left Photo. It is much more durable. It is very, very solid. It's much thicker, and it has a pretty cool little wooden handle here on the side, which I think looks really nice. Now, it's definitely not as comfortable. I was really hoping it would be as comfortable, but it's not quite there. And maybe if you have much bigger hands, it would be, but it's pretty chunky. As for the top bit, I've really sort of put a lot of pressure on to see if it'll bend, and it won't bend at all. And another really nice thing about the top plate here is that it has a built-in NATO rail on the top that you can sort of access from the side. So you can slide on any NATO attachment, and that'll come in handy later for one of our other accessories. Now, both of these cages work great. This one is cheaper and more solid, but this one is thinner and more comfortable. Both of them have Arca Swiss plates on the bottom, so as far as attaching them to tripod plates or Arca Swiss plates, you won't have any problems there. So both of these work great, and I would use both of them. If I want to rig the ZVE10 up big, kind of like this camera, I'm going to go with the Left Photo one, and if I want to rig it up, or if I don't really want to rig it up too much, but I want it to be more comfortable, a little bit more sleek, then I'm going with the SmallRig one. So it's up to you, whichever one you think you would prefer. So my second accessory is actually something I think every photographer and videographer should purchase and keep in their camera bags. And that is actually a simple cleaning kit. Now, you can find these on Amazon for anywhere from $15 to $40. This is just a budget one. I think it was like $18, and it comes with everything that you need to keep your camera clean. It comes with a classic rocket blower, which are super handy. This just gets any dust off the sensor or off the camera that you want to get off. It comes with a little cleaning spray. Do not use this on your sensor. This is just for things like the screen itself. You can give it a good clean. A little dust brush, which is very handy. One of these little thingamabobs. It's got like a brush on one end, and on the other end it's got one of these I never really know what this does. It's like a little belt sort of dust catcher, I guess. I don't really know. I don't really use it very often, but if I ever do, it's nice to have. And the other nice thing about most of these kits, and this is something you need to be looking out for, are sensor cleaners. Now, cleaning your sensor can be a little bit daunting, and one thing you want to make sure that you check whenever you're purchasing your cleaning kit is making sure that you get the right sensor size for your camera. So for example, for this one, I need to get APS-C ones, which is for an APS-C or Super 35 sensor. This will clean the ZVE10 sensor just fine. If you have a full frame sensor, you're going to want to make sure that you get one for your full frame camera. So something like this just comes with a lot. You got microfiber cloths, you've got sort of wet wipes, you've got cleaning sprays, all that kind of stuff. And one thing that people love to talk about are these rocket blowers. But there was a product sent to me recently that has replaced this for me, and I absolutely love it. I think it's ingenious. And it is this. This is the BB21 by Nightcore. It's got this little cap on the front. I'll take that off. And it's basically an electronic air blower, like a little rocket blower. You can set the output power at levels 1, 2, or 3, and then you just hold this button, and that's it on full blast. It's pretty loud, and you can basically just use it to clean whatever parts of your camera that you want to clean, or even your desk for your keyboard, or for whatever you want. If you want to get dust off it, you don't need to use your rocket blower. You just hold a button and you work away. So that's level 1, 2, and 3. That's so loud. So on the side here, it's got its little filter, so you can take this off and you can clean that separately, just to give it a good clean, make sure it doesn't get clogged up with dust. And it also is rechargeable by USB-C. And it's got one other cool hidden feature, which is a little brush. So you got a little brush on the end if you want to get rid of some dust. So if you're interested and you don't want to carry your little rocket blower around, this is actually pretty handy. So this has kind of replaced the little brush and my rocket blower, and stays in my little camera cleaning kit, so I don't need this either. And it stays in there, and it's super handy. I use it all the time for cleaning my keyboard or my desk accessories, or honestly for filming YouTube videos. You want to make sure things aren't super dusty all the time, so just using them to clean off lenses or products all the time is super handy. Now the third product that we're going to be talking about are these. These are little SD card holders, right? So whenever you're purchasing your camera, you're going to want to make sure that you get SD cards for your camera. Now this is a new one you've probably seen all over social media. It's the PGY Tech Create Mate, I think it's called. And it's a really cool little designed SD card holder. So it's basically this rugged little rubber piece, and you push in the bottom, and up on the top comes out your SD card holder. So it holds 4 full SD cards. So I've got 2 there and 2 on the other side. And it's got 4 micro SD cards for drones or something like that. I don't tend to use them very much. Now the ingenious thing about this one is it not only holds your cards, but it also has a USB-C cable that comes out of it. So once you're done filming, you can take your SD card, put it into the reader, plug that into your computer, start editing. Once you're done backing up your files or editing, whatever you're doing, put it straight back into the reader, tuck the little cable away, and you're done. You throw that back in your camera bag, takes up no space, it's super durable. I've already dropped it a few times, and it doesn't even have a scuff on it. So this has been absolutely fantastic. I love this. Now the craziest thing about this is actually the price. I really expected this to be about $60 or $70, but it's actually only $39, so about $40. And in the past, I've actually purchased SD card holders that cost $30, and then buying an SD card reader, you're talking another $10, $20, $30, whatever it is you want to spend on an SD card reader. This just puts it all into one product for basically the same price, which I think is great. For something that is this rugged and this useful, I really think that this is a fantastic thing to keep in your camera kit. Now third, we're going to talk about powering your camera. Now one of the problems with the ZVE10 is the battery life. These little NPFW50 batteries are fine. They don't hold a huge amount of charge. If you're using it sort of sparingly, they do just fine. But if you want to use your camera for a long day or for like a long shoot, you're going to want to either take multiple batteries with you or use external power. Now what a lot of people do whenever they're building up camera rigs is they'll use these big V-mount batteries on the back. And this is super handy, right? Like having a big V-mount battery is great, but most of the time you're probably not going to want to carry around a rig this large, especially for photography. That would just be ridiculous. So how we're going to remedy this is with NPF batteries. Now NPF batteries come in multiple sizes, right? This is the smallest one. This is the NPF 550, and this is one we're going to be talking about mainly today. As it is small, it's sleek, that takes up very little space. Now the problem with this kind of battery is you don't have any ports on it to get it into the camera. You can't, it's not going to fit inside the camera. And as far as attaching on the outside goes, you're going to need an accessory. Now that accessory is this is an Ulanzi battery plate, which basically allows you to attach an NPF battery and gives you 3 outputs that you can use to attach to any peripherals. You got a USB-A, a USB-C, and a D-tap port. Now what I've done to this plate in particular, because it's got a 1/4-20 thread on the bottom, is I've attached a little NATO clamp. Now if you remember, this cage that we talked about earlier has this NATO rail on the top. What we can do then is we can take this all together and we can just slide it on top of the NATO rail, lock it down, and we have this. Now if we put the camera inside here, obviously you want to screw that in, but this is kind of what it would look like. It does take up some space, it's a little bulky, but it's not crazy, and this can increase your battery life for at least an hour with one of these batteries at the minimum. Now there's a couple of ways that you can get this to power your camera. One, you can take a little USB to USB-C, use the USB you can use the USB-A on the side and use the USB-C port on your camera and use it basically as power delivery to charge the battery inside your camera. Now the nice thing about this is you basically have continuous power. So this Ulanzi plate on the top shows you your battery life, and this one currently has 75%-ish battery life. And once that dies, your camera will keep running because the battery inside your camera is fine. So what you can do, especially if you're filming sort of long videos, you can then just pop this battery off of the plate, and you can replace this. Your camera doesn't die, and you can keep going. Now, the only problem with this is that if you're filming in a hot environment, you're slightly more likely to run into overheating problems. I personally haven't faced any before, but usually, I'm in a climate-controlled studio, or I'm filming sort of later on in the day when it's not super hot. But you're more likely to run into overheating with power delivery. Now, the other thing that you could do is use the DTAP port that's on the top here. So we could take a DTAP to dummy battery and plug it into this and put the dummy battery end into the camera. Now, what this allows you to do is basically all of the power that is going into the camera is coming from this battery. Now, the problem is obviously that once this dies, then your camera dies, and then you just got to swap it out. You're good to keep going. But the benefit is that you'll never come across overheating problems, because all of the heat that is generated from the battery is coming from here, not actually inside the camera. And then the last thing I'd say about this sort of setup is that if you wanted to, and you wanted to shoot for a really long time, you can get much bigger versions of these NPF batteries. Now, this obviously will be a little bit ridiculous in size, but in theory, you could make one as large as this. This would feel a little bit silly to use, but just as an example, I mean, this is going to last 3 or 4 or 5 hours at least. You'll be able to shoot all day with one of these batteries, no problem. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about for this camera is primarily video focused. You can use these for photography, but mainly for video, and that is ND filters. My favorite ND filters are by a company called Freewell. Freewell make super high quality ND filters that have great color uniformity, which basically means that once you add it to your lens, it's not going to change all of the colors of the image, which can sometimes happen because you're adding glass in front of your lens, so it can sometimes sort of make it super warm, or maybe very green or magenta, whatever it is. These are pretty good. All ND filters are going to add a little bit of color changes, but this one is pretty uniform. And basically what an ND filter does, you've probably heard of these before, but it's like sunglasses for your lenses, right? That's what they call it. Now, a variable ND filter is something that you can change the density of the ND. So basically, once you add this to the front of your lens, you can turn it and you can make it darker or brighter, and change the amount of light that enters your lens. Now, for video, this is super helpful because you can set your settings to where you want them, have your shutter speed to where you want to have your shutter speed, put this on the front of your lens, and then if you walk from indoor to outdoor and it gets super bright, you can just make this darker, and then your scene stays exposed in the exact way that you want it. Now, as for photography, these are pretty beneficial as well. So you can put this in front of your lens to help you be able to expose properly for a long exposure photo. That'll allow you to sort of get that fluffy waterfall look that people like to go for. But overall, primarily, I think these are used more for video, especially the variable types. Now, this one in particular I love because it's not only an ND filter, but it also has built-in mist filters. So what that means is it sort of dirties up the image a little bit. So you're looking at one through this right now. So you'll notice over here, this light has a slight blooming effect to it. So if I go ahead and take this filter off, so you can see with the filter off, the light is much sort of firmer, and everything gets a little bit more contrasty, everything gets a little sharper, and the black level gets a little bit darker. And what a mist filter does is it just sort of dirties all that up a little bit, makes the light a little bit more fluffy, makes skin a little softer, and brings up the black level a little bit, and just sort of helps add a little bit of interest to your footage. So these Freewell filters, what they do is they give you the ND filter, but it also has built-in mist filter. They're about $100, and you can get 2 different ones. So that's a 2-stop to a 5-stop, and then a 6-stop to 9-stop. So that'll get you even darker. And they're just incredibly handy to have. There's so many times that I've gone on shoots and I wish I'd brought these because I've had to crank up my shutter speed, and then motion blur goes all funny. And these are just really important things to have in your kit. Now, there are so many other things that you can add to this camera to make it better, right? These are just 5 that really came to my mind. I wanted to improve battery life. Cleaning kits are so important because sensors get dirty, screens get dirty. It's just so helpful to have them. And if you've ever had a dirty sensor with no cleaning kit and you came back afterwards and you see these big blotchy images in your footage, you'll know you want to have a cleaning kit on hand just in case. Cages are super helpful because you can attach so many accessories like external batteries to your camera, and everybody needs SD cards. I'll leave my recommended SD card links in the description down below, but everybody needs an SD card, everybody needs SD card readers, and everybody needs SD card holders. and this just does all those for you, which is really smart. And lastly, ND filters. I think that's the one that is more of a luxury. I think that it's not completely necessary, but is incredibly beneficial. But I want to know what your list is. If you have a ZVE10 and you have a handful of accessories that you love for this camera, your favorite microphones, your favorite lenses, all these sorts of things. I didn't really want to get into lenses for these because there's so many good options. But I want to know what your favorite accessories for this camera are. If you picked up this camera today, what would be the things that you would pick up to go alongside it? I want to hear your thoughts down below, and if you've enjoyed this video, if you're still watching, hit the like button. It really helps with engagement, and maybe even subscribe as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope you have a wonderful day.